look at Maurice Wiles, who wrote from a Christian perspective, and he wrote in his book Myth of God Incarnate. And he almost puts forward a theodicy to defend God. He says that if the Bible is to be taken literally, then God performs a lot of miracles which are arbitrary and partisan. So arbitrary meaning completely random, so random acts out of arbitrary whim. Partisan means that he takes favour of certain people over others. So for example, favouring the Israelites in the Exodus story. Wiles believed that if this is true, then this questions the nature of God, and it questions whether God is really good if he takes favourites and he acts randomly. So he says if such a God does exist like this, then he doesn't deserve to be worshipped. I believe that it's better to reject that God performs miracles completely, as then this doesn't really question the nature of God. Instead, we should see miracles as symbolic rather than literally true. But Wiles still believed in God, which is why this is sort of a theodicy. So he's trying to defend the nature of God. If an exam question comes up about this, you can use Bultmann to actually extend upon this. And Bultmann talked about demythologizing the Bible, and he talked about the thatness rather than the whatness of Jesus, which basically means we should focus on what Jesus did and what he preached rather than the fact that he existed or what he looked like. The word for this is kerygma, which means proclamation. He talked about the oral tradition of passing down what Jesus taught. For Wiles, we can question the nature of God completely. Why would God intervene with parting the Red Sea for the Israelites when he wouldn't prevent the Holocaust and millions of Jews from dying? Wiles rejects miracles on three grounds. The first is that God created the world, so to intervene with the laws of nature would be actually undermining his creation. The second is, why did God intervene in the feeding of the 5,000 and not in, say, the Irish potato famine? So the biblical miracles actually seem trivial. The third reason that he rejects miracles is that an interventionist God takes away from the idea that humans have free will to decide for themselves. So if God intervenes with miracles, then it already suggests that it's been predetermined what will happen, and there's no way that free will can have any say. For Wiles, there is in fact only just one miracle that God performed, and this is the miracle of creation. And this doesn't raise any problems with the nature of God, because it didn't require any intervention in the laws of nature, because the laws of nature didn't exist. For Wiles, God is an ever-present sustainer in the world, so he sustains without actually intervening. Through this, Wiles comes up with two conclusions. The first is that God performs random arbitrary acts, so therefore is not worthy of worship. And the second is that God does not intervene at all. So here we can use Tom Morris's beach ball analogy. So this talks about a boy who loses his beach ball in the waves, but somehow the ball returns back to him. Why did the boy get the beach ball back when there are people dying of cancer in the world? It seems trivial that the boy would get his ball back when people are dying in the world. So why does God choose so randomly how he acts? But a counter-argument to this would be that God acts with purpose. So perhaps there was a reason for why the boy got the ball back. Well, it may appeal to educated believers, as it allows them to uphold religious beliefs and also believe in science as well. It's quite easy to accept, and it's accessible to all levels of understanding. And Tom Morris's beach ball analogy is quite easy to understand and apply to the situation. However, a very strong criticism of Wiles is that he says miracles shouldn't be taken literally, but then this undermines a lot of the Christian faith, as a lot of Christianity is actually based on the miracles and teachings of Jesus. So to say these aren't literal would be actually to undermine a whole religion. And it could also be said that he contradicts himself in saying that creation is a miracle, because he states that there are no miracles, and then states, but there is one miracle. So he seems like he's sort of bending the rules for himself. And he also, like Hume, misses a point of miracles as revelatory. So this could also be quite offensive to religious believers. Peter Vardy also found a way that miracles could happen without compromising the nature of God. God can selectively do miracles and still remain omnibenevolent. He explains this by saying, two obvious demonstrations of God's power through frequent miracles would lead to a loss of free will. If God was constantly intervening, then we wouldn't have any free will really, because the path would already be predetermined. So before I finish the video, we're going to look at three more philosophers quite briefly. The first one is Richard Swinburne. Swinburne said that it is a miracle if it fits the divine purpose of an activity. So if it has a divine purpose, it's more likely to be a miracle. And he said that no one has disproved that miracles do happen. So it's quite likely that miracles do happen. The second one is Keith Ward, who actually goes against what Wiles says. He believes that God doesn't act against free will, but he acts with free will. Wiles has misunderstood the nature of God's activity in history and his intervention. So Ward said if God is omnibenevolent, then we would actually expect intervention in human history. If God didn't intervene, then he wouldn't be omnibenevolent, because it wouldn't show a God that actually cares about his creations. The final philosopher that we're going to go through today is Richard Dawkins, who can be considered a modern Darwinist, as he believes that all behaviour has an evolutionary basis. He goes directly against Swinburne and says that there's no evidence to suggest that miracles have ever broken the laws of nature. Instead, he agrees with Hume, and he says that anyone who's believed to have seen a miracle is actually just hallucinating or crazy even, or misguided in what they've seen. This would link to Hume's criticism of sufficient number and not enough intelligent, educated people witnessing the miracle. So as I mentioned a second ago, Dawkins believes that all behaviour has an evolutionary advantage. So he would explain miracles by saying that as a child, we listen to what adults say and what adults tell us for survival purposes. Belief in miracle stories is actually just part of this childish credulity which has stayed with us since we were children. That was a very long video, and I feel quite exhausted after that, but I hope it's helped. I hope you understand miracles a bit better now, and I hope you can use this in your exam questions. And any requests, as usual, leave it in the comments, or any comments, leave it in the comments, as that would make sense. I hope you all have a great Christmas and enjoy your holidays, and bye bye.